Hi everyone, and welcome to another Heroes of the Grid Ranger video. Today I'm continuing my S.P.D coverage with Z, the S.P.D Yellow Ranger. Z has the standard card breakdown of 3 shield cards, 4 2 shield cards, and 3 1 shield cards. Starting with her character ability, it's Replication. It says, once per battle, after any ranger rolls dice for an attack, you may spend 1 energy to choose 1 die result and add 1 die to the attack with the same result. So as I mentioned, I can't remember if it was Jack's or Sky's video, Z is the ranger that adds dice to rangers, basically to their attacks, but you'll see it kind of falls into her replication ability. She adds dice with predetermined results. And like I said, as we go further through her deck you'll see that. But 1 energy to add one, so let's say a ranger rolls, 2 dice, gets a critical hit, Z can spend 1 energy to add a second die. It doesn't remove the die that it's replicating, it just adds another die with that same result. So if they rolled 1 regular hit, 1 critical hit, you can spend 1 energy to add a second critical hit. Now you're doing 5 damage instead of 3 to the target. It's a very, very powerful ability, actually. I mean, right off the bat, you can pair this with like the Power X. I'm thinking right off the top of my head. And if you get a critical hit with the Power X, just use this to replicate it. And now you're dealing 4 damage to all adjacent enemy cards in addition to the whatever you rolled to the initial target. So yeah, very, very good card. Jumping into her combat deck is Sideswipe. It's a 0 cost, 2 dice attack card with 2 shields for defense. Its ability says another ranger may draw 2 cards. If they do, add 1 die to this attack. It's a standard 2 dice for 0 cost. Now notice another ranger doesn't have to draw cards, but if they do, it has to be 2. They can't draw 1 card, they can't draw 0 cards, they have to draw 2 cards. And that's the only way you get the extra die to this attack. This is a card, basically, once you start the fight, maybe a ranger only has 1 or 2 cards in their hand, and you have this in your hand, you'll tell them, hey, don't draw any cards, I'll play this, that way you can draw 2 more. That way this card gets an extra die added to it, which is great, because the better you roll, the more likely you'll be able to use Z's character ability, her replication, to deal additional damage. It's a really powerful card, but I mean, again, like all cards that force you to draw cards, you have to be careful, because if you run out of cards in your deck because of the effect, then that ranger is defeated. It may not be worth an extra die if you're going to end up losing one of your rangers. But still, I didn't actually use the effect of this card, but I did use it to attack once or twice. So it's still not a bad card. Our second combat card is Sleight of Hand. It's a 0 cost reaction card with 2 shields for defense. Its ability says play this card after any ranger rolls dice for an attack. Remove 1 die from that attack to gain energy equal to the damage of that result. So this card, the ranger rolls 3 dice, let's say, they get 1 blank, 1 regular, 1 critical hit. You could play Sleight of Hand to remove either the 1 damage result or the critical hit result, and you'll gain that much energy depending on which one you removed. So if you remove the critical hit, you're gaining 2 energy. But just remember that since the die is removed, now that damage is taken away from the target of that attack. So just keep that in mind. You can also kind of use this in combination with her replication. So if you roll, again, my scenario, 1 blank, 1 regular, 1 critical hit, you can remove the critical hit. You could first use Z's ability to add a second critical hit result. So you're still dealing 3 damage to the target, and then remove it using Sleight of Hand, because let's say you don't need 5 damage. You can just use Sleight of Hand to remove one of the critical hits, so now you're gaining 2 energy to set up for the next attack. And you're still doing 3 damage. It does take some, finagling to use it effectively, but it's still really good when it works. Our next card is Multi-Strike. It's a 1 cost, 2 dice attack with 1 shield for defense. Its ability says after you resolve this attack, you may perform an additional attack with 1 die. I didn't really mention it with Sky or Bridge, but I guess cover that really fast when I cover the team. But Z, she also has a civilian ability like all the S.P.D Rangers do, and that is, as you probably guessed by this picture, is that she can duplicate herself. She can create multiple copies, and that's why her ability is replication, adding, doubling something, the result of something. And Multi-Strike, obviously, visually is a good example of it. So you're performing 2 separate attacks. The first attack deals is 2 dice. The second attack is 1 die. Each attack can have dice added to it, by like Tyrannosaurus, or have its results altered. But each attack, you cannot choose cards that are being guarded, as usual. But if the first attack does defeat a card with the guard keyword, then the second attack can attack anything it was guarding originally. as long as there's not another card that's guarding it. I did not use this card actually. I don't think I drew it, or if I did, I just didn't have a use for it. But it's probably, I mean, it's not like a weak card, especially if you can power it up with adding additional dice to it. But it's just not one that I found very helpful in my game. Still good though; it has its uses. Our next card is Double Team. It's a zero cost maneuver card with 3 shields for defense. Its ability says another ranger may immediately play 1 attack card. After rolling, they may choose 1 die result and add 1 die to the attack with the same result. It's a combat card version of her replication, basically. This actually pairs really well with Jack's attack of opportunity. So you play Double Team at the start of the ranger turn, and Jack can play attack of opportunity. Since he played a maneuver card first, attack of opportunity gains an additional die, so he's now rolling 3 dice. And if you're lucky enough to get a critical hit result, you can add an extra die of whatever result you want from the dice that you rolled. And if you want, you could even use Z's ability to further add another die to it to really pile on the damage if you roll something great. So it is a really good card. I only got to use it once, but that's only because I only drew it one time. But yeah, it's a really good card for 0 cost. I mean, I really, really like it. Finally, well, not finally, but next is her Delta Max Fire. It's a 2 cost maneuver card with 1 shield for defense. Perform an attack with 3 dice that targets a foot soldier card of your choice. Another ranger may then perform an attack with 3 dice that targets a different foot soldier card. So as always, you can't choose cards that are being guarded with either attack. Dice can be added, results can be altered for both attacks, and you cannot perform the second attack if you're the only ranger in that location. It has to be another ranger that performs it. But yeah, still really good. Finally, her power weapon actually doesn't even use a weapon. It's Delta Max Right. It's a 3 cost, 4 dice attack with 3 shields for defense. Its ability says after rolling, choose 1 die result. The next time any ranger performs an attack during this battle, add 2 dice to that attack with the same result. Now this is a very powerful card. I've only got to use it once in my final battle against the boss, and it's really good. That's the only time I drew it. That's the only reason I used it once. But let's say, I mean, you're rolling 4 dice, which is fantastic automatically. She rolls the second highest number of dice of all the S.P.D Rangers outside of Sky with the sniper. But choose 2 die results. They're not removed from the attack, so all that damage is still dealt to the target. So if you got 2 critical hits, choose those 2. That's still being dealt to the initial target of this attack. On the next attack performed in the battle, those 2 dice, those 4 hits, basically results get added to the next attack card. It doesn't have to be an attack card, so the next attack just automatically gets a +4 in my example anyway. If you only roll nothing but 1 hits, then it's still an extra 2 damage, which is great. That would be kind of like Jared's Black Lion spirit. Yeah, adding 2 dice with guaranteed damage to the next attack, especially against a boss, is just really, really more phenomenal. It's really good. I like it. It has 3 shields. I mean, you can use it for great defense too. Anything. It's just really, I really don't see a drawback to this card aside from the high cost. But I mean, any power weapons at least 3, so that's how they balance them. And just also, I guess the caveat is that it has to be the next attack that gets the bonus. You can't save this for a future attack, for an attack that you're going to do 2 or 3 turns later. So keep that in mind. Z-Zord is the Delta Runner 4. Its ability says exhaust this card after any ranger rolls dice for an attack. Remove 1 die from that attack to deal 2 damage to any enemy card other than the target. This is actually a very powerful Zord. It was the second one that I drew for the S.P.D team, and I used it a lot during my game. Just remember, unlike Z's replication or her Delta Max Riot, the Zord actually removes the die. So if you remove a critical hit from it, then that damage is not dealt to the target of that initial attack. But you can deal 2 damage to any enemy card other than the target. It can't be the target that you're using this Delta Runner 4 for. And the best part is you can remove, if you roll any blanks, you can remove the blank and deal the 2 damage. So it's, no matter what you roll, you're getting at least 2 guaranteed damage if you're using Delta Runner 4. But it has to be an attack that they roll. You can't use this if they roll dice for a non-attack type effect. You can't split the 2 damage among 2 different enemy cards that are not the target. The 2 damage has to be applied to one single enemy card. But you can choose any card, even if it's being guarded or not. That's really, really good. And it has to be used after the dice are rolled, which I think is great because you won't know for sure what you roll until after, the results until you roll them. So then you can remove the blank that you rolled, most likely. Based on my experience, I almost always roll at least 1 blank. Fantastic. All right, now breaking down Z's combat deck. She has 2 copies of Double Team, of course. 2 copies of Sideswipe, 2 copies of Sleight of Hand, 2 copies of Multi-Strike, 1 copy of Delta Max Fire, and 1 copy of Delta Max Riot. As I mentioned at the start of this video, Z is a ranger that adds dice to ranger results, but she doesn't add them in the traditional sense, and that she just adds additional dice that rangers can roll. She adds guaranteed results to rangers, which I think is actually a better play on the adding dice effect that most rangers have. Aside from that, let's see. Actually, none of her abilities that I can see actually specifically target foot soldiers. I mean, aside from her Delta Max Fire, but all of her other cards can work on any single enemy. Every single enemy, doesn't matter if they're foot soldier or not. Yeah, she's the replicator of the team. She just adds guaranteed damage. She can perform multiple attacks with her multi hit. But yeah, that's kind of her thing. She just adds guaranteed damage. But yeah, that is Z. Her full name is Elizabeth Delgado. She's just called Z for short. But that is Z. Hope you look forward to the next video. In the meantime, head on over to onceranger.com to check out the full card database, and affiliate links will be provided below. Thank you.